Start with contracting sprites. Chapter 361, Future Plan. 10 days later. In the city of Glow, at the Union Council. Su Hao came here to formally accept the position of inspector. He wasn't the only one who was waiting to be accepted into his position. There were a dozen other people in their 30s who had also arrived here. Sun Sun was one of them. He had also completed the assessment of the intern inspector, and it was said that he was already a heavenly king. How cool! But why didn't the Sun Sun seem happy? Apart from Sun Sun, Su Hao didn't know anyone else. He only learned from their conversations that many of them were here for other positions, but those who could stand here today were at least at the level of commander in each department. At the bottom of the hierarchy, there were the regular employees. Then there was the junior leader level. Followed by the intermediate leader level, arrest officer level. Then there was the senior leader level, advanced arrest officer level. Above that was the commander rank. However, the titles of the various departments might not be the same. The position of intern inspector belonged to such a level. To put it more simply, his position was only half a level lower than the president of the Provincial Guild of Dragon Nation, and even higher than the ordinary provincial vice president. And the position also came with practical benefits. There weren't many people at the venue of the award ceremony. Apart from the dozen or so Sprite trainers who were here to accept their positions, only some staff members in charge of running errands and a few big bosses of the Union had arrived from different countries. The big boss of Dragon Nation was Su Hao's distant acquaintance, Heavenly King Lai Kong. He had personally put a medal on Su Hao with a colorful rim. Inspector Medal Intern. Congratulations! From now on, you are an intern inspector. You should know your rights and responsibilities by now. Anything else you need is probably already updated on your inspector wristband. Beside him, Butterfly and the other sprites stood around in succession. Ayan stood behind him, closest to his shadow. The big fat bear sensed the surrounding gazes and raised its head, sticking out its chest. The dumb unicorn didn't take any small steps and stood solemnly. After the medals were awarded and the vows were sworn, Su Hao walked to the side and sat down, waiting for the other people's awarding segment to end. Taking advantage of this time, he opened his wristband. Buzz! This inspector's personal wristband had already been updated. Some of the privileges that hadn't been unlocked in the past had also been completely unlocked. Ding! According to your position as an intern inspector, the Union's clearance is increased by 1 level. Currently, your clearance is at level 11. Please take a look at the details. At level 10, he was already at the level of a heavenly king. At this level, he could barely be considered one of the upper echelons of the Union. Most of the information he was able to access had already been accessed. He could check on the current environment, the situation in the various war zones, some experts from terrorist organizations like the Dark Society, and so on. Of course, he needed to apply to access some of the more classified information. But it didn't mean much. The real benefit of high authority was that he was now able to find more treasure vaults. So, public reports that talked about how the Union's treasure vault has already been made public and can be exchanged with Union contribution were all lies. Apart from high clearance, there was also more detailed information about the various regional heads in his list. When necessary, he could contact these people with his identity as an intern inspector and mobilize the local resources and manpower. With Su Hao's order, the various guilds had to cooperate. He also received many emails from various corporations. They invited him to take on some responsibilities similar to senior consultants at the company. These were all idle jobs. Su Hao would only receive the benefits and wouldn't really need to work. It was equivalent to various corporations giving him money. Cough, cough. For them, it was like an investment. Basically, the corporations intend to exchange the benefits for future favors, under the premise that the favors won't violate the Union's laws. Despite only being able to operate within the laws of the Union, the various companies and corporations still wanted to get involved with high-level officials of the Union. An intern inspector like Su Hao, who wasn't restricted by geographical or positional restrictions, was even more popular among the corporations. The White Elephant Club, Red Lotus Group, Green Shade Group, and other large corporations all offered him invitations. Although the benefits given by ordinary corporations are higher, but ordinary corporations may encounter more trouble, so it might be better to go for the easier option. Su Hao already had plans. He accepted 2 to 3 invitations from giant corporations like the Green Shade Group. Apart from receiving benefits, being on good terms with these corporations was also very beneficial to him. Finally, it was time for Su Hao to recruit 5 members of his inspector team. Right now, you can put up the recruitment information of the inspector team on the Union's intranet. Such positions are very popular and can attract the applications of a lot of Sprite trainers. Heavenly King Lycong walked over and said, "The Union will help you eliminate the unqualified candidates among these people. There will be some outstanding talents in various aspects for you to choose from." Su Hao thought about it and asked, "Heavenly King Ji, do you have any suggestions?" Heavenly King Lycong looked as if he was the right person to be asked this question. "Back then, I also almost cough, this isn't important. I still know a lot about the affairs of an inspector. Firstly, in the entire team, you will have to rely on your own strength to win battles. Even if you can recruit some geniuses, you can't expect them to be close to your level. Even if they are, their development speed will definitely be far slower than yours. So the question is, what kind of talents does the inspector team usually need?" Heavenly King Lycong smiled and said, "Firstly, you will need intelligence talent that will help you collect and organize intelligence from all over the world. Secondly, you need computer talent. It's an information society now. A Sprite trainer with advanced computer skills will play a key role in your team. After that, you need an outstanding assistant. For example, if you want to deal with a foreign region, you need to at least know a little of their language. You can't always rely on sprites to translate. I know you know how to summon spirit language, but you're an inspector. You shouldn't have to do everything yourself." He said, "For example, when you need to mobilize the local sprite trainers for a mission, your assistant can represent you to handle these things. As for you, what you need to do is to coordinate the overall situation, or prepare for battle to deal with tricky enemies." Heavenly King Lycong gave a lot of suggestions. In conclusion, Su Hao needed to find team members that would deal with other matters. The people he recruited would be in charge of intelligence gathering, mission handover, personnel contact, medical care, and so on. Originally, he could even recruit another exclusive Sprite cultivator, but Su Hao didn't need one. But apart from these professional techniques, to qualify as a subordinate of the inspector, one also needed to have the most basic level requirements. At least, the applicant needed to be a master-level Sprite trainer above mid-level. Su Hao couldn't help but be impressed. Now, it's not easy to be a composite talent either. Actually, that's probably not true. It's mainly because I'm too popular. Why did I have to be so outstanding? Originally, Su Hao wanted to offer the job to Fatty Ren and the others, but now, it seemed that among the peers he knew, there weren't many who could meet the basic requirements. He could only go through the slow recruitment process. After the award ceremony, Su Hao arrived at the headquarters building of the arrest department. At this moment, after more than 10 days, the interrogators in the arrest department had already gotten a lot of information from the captured Dark Society members. In the past few days, the arrest department had also launched many follow-up operations. Having played an important role in the siege of the Dark Society back then, Su Hao naturally had the right to know about such things. The Dark Society has been secretly collecting the technology of the Union. They even bought the prohibited goods of the Union through various channels and sold them to the alien tribes in exchange for some precious cultivation resources. Such a dark society is no longer just a terrorist organization. They can't be tolerated. They needed to be suppressed. Compared to the tribes, the only advantage the Union had was the level of technology. Only by using technology to assist the development of Sprites will Planet Aquamarine be able to gradually catch up to the tribes. Besides, the Dark Society isn't just selling Planet Aquamarine technology. They're even trafficking humans to the tribe. At that time, Butterfly saved a batch of Sprite trainers imprisoned by the Dark Society. According to the information obtained, these Sprite trainers were likely to have been brainwashed after being sold to the tribes. It was the real kind of brainwashing, using illusion to change a person's mind. Su Hao felt a chill in his heart. When will the people of Planet Aquamarine be able to truly fight back? In the information, there was dozens of incriminating evidence regarding the evil deeds of the Dark Society. It was possible that some of the underlings won't be charged with a big crime. But if caught, most members of the Dark Society would have severe punishments that could result in them being pulled out and shot 10 times. But what I'm more curious about is the news about that Dark Society Heavenly King. There's nothing in here. Su Hao thought about it and opened his wristband. He found Captain Mo Tao, whom he got to know during the siege battle. 10 minutes later. In the Deputy Minister's office. Originally, Su Hao only wanted to look for Mo Tao, who had the highest position among the people he got to know in the mission, and ask about the interrogation situation of the Dark Society Heavenly King. Su Hao arrived at the office in a daze. The big boss wanted to see him. The deputy ministers of the 4 major departments could be said to be big shots with real power in the Union. However, as someone who had seen multiple crown-level Sprite trainers, Su Hao wasn't afraid. In any case, he would just answer whatever the big boss asked. Well, overall, this big boss's appearance didn't seem as easygoing as Principal Yang and Teacher Yang. It was a stoic and cold face with a threatening debuff. Why don't you explain why the Union is currently focusing on dealing with terrorist organizations like the Dark Society? The deputy minister asked. One of the answers for this question was naturally because the Dark Society was extremely dangerous. The Dark Society was selling information and technology of the Union. But apart from that, the matter was also related to the current environment. The current environment is that the various war zones are relatively calm. According to my understanding, the main war zones have not had a large-scale battle for several years, but not having any big battles doesn't mean that the aggressiveness of the tribe's main battle faction has weakened. It's just that their internal situation is unstable. They're also worried that the war with us will cause their own losses and let the other tribes take advantage of the situation. In terms of development speed, the tribe was naturally not as fast as the Union. The Union also needed more time to develop. The longer it dragged on, the smaller the gap between the Planet Aquamarine Union and the tribe. The experts of the tribe naturally understood this. Currently, some people in the Union believed that now that the difference in strength had shrunk, the tribe wouldn't dare to start a war lightly. They could only restrict the development of the Union from other aspects. For example, by secretly supporting organizations such as the Dark Society. Therefore, the Dark Society had to be eliminated, or at least be dealt with. He said. Mo Tao nodded in agreement. But, Su Hao added, there's another possibility. The reason why the situation is stable is that the tribe is accumulating strength. I remember that the chief of the main battle faction is also the strongest tribe on the alien planet. It's very likely that they want to complete the unification of the alien tribes first. Once the various tribes are unified, the main battle faction's power will definitely soar, and they won't have any more scruples. So, we need to take advantage of the situation right now, when the battle isn't tense, to draw out some power and completely eliminate the malignant tumor known as the Dark Society. These were speculations made by Su Hao after collecting intelligence information from various departments. Not bad. As an inspector, Su Hao needed to have a good view of the big picture. This way, he could be a person who could control the whole situation and not just be a high-level combatant. The deputy minister nodded in approval, but under his stoic expression, he still seemed a little scary. After listening to Su Hao's analysis, the deputy minister asked again. I want to hear about your future development plans. The Union Council won't assign too many missions to you intern inspectors because it wants you to develop freely. Of course it's retirement. Cough, of course it's to continue cultivating sprites. Su Hao almost blurted out his ultimate dream. Retirement. In the past, it was because he wasn't strong enough and didn't feel safe. But now, he had already defeated a heavenly king head-on. He felt that he had completed a small goal. He could start planning for his retirement. He could finally relax his body and mind. Apart from that, I plan to conduct some research on sprite evolution. The deputy minister. Mo Tao. Isn't this a little too drastic? As a newly appointed inspector who had just received the inheritance, what was the point of doing research and not cultivating properly? It was not proper work. The deputy minister didn't say this directly, but his meaning was made very clear. Mr. Minister, actually, research on sprite evolution is also closely related to my own development. Su Hao reached out and summoned the dazed crow. Look, right now, the time has come for it to evolve. I'm researching evolution. Who knows when I'll suddenly find the right path and come up with its evolution plan. When the deputy minister heard this, he felt that it made sense, so he slowly nodded. Su Hao added, besides, a heavyweight research paper should be as helpful to the Union as a few more heavenly kings, right? Although the deputy minister was a martial artist, he couldn't deny the contributions of the sprite cultivators. It was just that. Was a heavyweight research paper that easy to produce? Oh right, this young man in front of him seemed to have written a heavyweight research paper before. Therefore, he nodded with a complicated expression. Su Hao continued, it just so happens that I have a bit of insight into evolution research. A few days ago, I suddenly had an idea for a universal evolution. Currently, I've already written a few papers and uploaded them. And right now, I'm only one paper away from having enough points to apply as a master sprite cultivator. So I want to take advantage of this time to see if I can figure it out. Master sprite cultivator. In other words, he was one paper away. If it was someone else who didn't understand, they might feel that Su Hao was being arrogant. However, the deputy minister remembered that this young man in front of him had once written a heavyweight research paper because of some inspiration. Thinking about it this way, it seemed like it might actually be possible. Once Su Hao succeeded, it would be a huge contribution to the Union. Thus, he had no choice but to support it. Thinking of this, the deputy minister nodded helplessly. Chapter 362, The Grand Event of the Sprite Cultivator World. Since you've already decided. The deputy minister thought about it and said, then go and study it. With your current status as an intern inspector, many top-level research equipment can also be applied for. However, don't neglect the cultivation of sprites. Your own strength is the foundation of everything. I hope that one day, you can become a crown sprite trainer, and not just stop at Heavenly King level. This expectation was not low at all. This was because there was no clear path between Heavenly King and crown. The existing crowns existed only because they were sufficiently outstanding and had successfully broken through by chance. Everyone had different ways of breaking through. No one dared to say that he or she knew exactly how to break through to the crown level. Even if it was at the top of the Heavenly King level, those big bosses wouldn't dare to say that they were close to reaching crown level. After the advice, the deputy minister said, at the end of the year, there's a top-level seminar in your sprite cultivation world. Since you want to study advanced evolution, you might be able to find inspiration there. These words indeed made Su Hao's eyes light up. Such a meeting of big bosses could indeed bring him a lot of inspiration, just like the solidification of his mental strength in the past. He had a lot of intelligence points now, but he had to have a clue that could consume intelligence points. On the way back to his residence, Su Hao sat on the soft cloud summoned by the dumb unicorn. On the side, he checked on his wristband for information regarding the year-end seminar. It was in November. Invitations were sent out to the Sprite Cultivator big shots in the entire Union. It could be said to be a top-notch grand event in the Sprite cultivation world. The reason why Su Hao didn't hear about it earlier was because his level wasn't high enough, and he had been busy with the Supernova Cup recently, so he had almost no contact with the Sprite Cultivator circle. But right now, with my status as a high-level Sprite Cultivator, I'm indeed not yet qualified to participate in this seminar. He had once made a name for himself in Dragon Nation's Sprite cultivation world after publishing his research paper on spiritual power solidification. He wasn't just any ordinary high-level Sprite cultivator. He could be considered as a specialist Sprite cultivator. There were also many well-known programs that had sent him invitations back when he was still popular. It was all in the past now. At that time, he was busy. He didn't want to be famous, nor did he take a fancy to it. So he rejected the invitation fee offered by those well-known programs. But even as a specialist Sprite cultivator renowned both in the Dragon Nation and abroad, I'm still not qualified enough to enter the seminar. You would have to at least be a master Sprite cultivator to get invited. It was a gathering of real big bosses and academic exchanges. Many research ideas also burst out during the collision of thoughts. Every master certified by the Union has 3 to 5 slots in their hands. If other Sprite cultivators want to go, they either have to be the master's favorite disciple, or they can only buy a slot at a high price. However, Su Hao had connections with more than a dozen master Sprite cultivators. It wasn't difficult for him to get a slot if he wanted to. However, as an intern inspector, I am actually already qualified to enter these top-notch gatherings freely in the first place. I'm in love with this job. Well, besides, it's only the beginning of May now. There are still a few months left. During this period of time, I'll work harder on my research paper and work hard to raise my level to master. It doesn't seem very difficult. Su Hao wasn't saying these things out loud. If someone happened to hear him, he might get beaten up by someone while walking on the road. As he checked, the phone screen in his pocket lit up. Even though he had already switched on silent mode out of habit, he still sensed it at the first moment with his sharp senses. Hey, Senior Wu. Okay, no problem. Over the phone, Senior Wu asked about the situation during the Supernova Cup and the inspector test. He also asked if there was anything he needed help with. He kept hinting at Su Hao to return to school if there wasn't anything important going on. There was also the identity of a school instructor that he wanted to arrange for him. The recruitment of team members will take some time. Perfect, I don't have anything to do recently, so I can just go back to Whale Island University. I can write my research paper anywhere anyway. The school isn't far from the laboratory too. With Dumb Unicorn's current speed, it'll only take an hour to fly there. As intern inspector, Su Hao didn't have a fixed office area. He could go anywhere he wanted. On the other hand, in the city of Glow, he now had a high-level mansion, the kind with a private cultivation field. Su Hao thought it would be a waste if he didn't use it, so he asked Butterfly and the other little guys, "Is there anyone who wants to stay and cultivate?" However, Butterfly flew over his head and occupied the throne, not bothering to answer. Ayan was a geek. It kept shaking his head, indicating that it wasn't willing to stay. The big fat bear and the eternal night glory concubine weren't cultivation maniacs either. Dazed crow. Squawk. Seeing it shake its head, Su Hao was a little surprised. Don't you like to cultivate the most? Squawk. It flapped its wings, producing a bright flash. Oh. Crow expressed that what it liked was battles, and only by following Su Hao would there be exciting battles to fight. Wait a minute, what did it mean that it would have thrilling battles just by following him around? In Crow's eyes, was he just a tool for it to get battles? Sure. The next time there's a strong enemy, you'll be a cheerleader. The dazed Crow shuddered. It kept feeling that something bad was about to happen to it. Nay. The dumb unicorn ran over and rubbed its head against his elbow. Su Hao flipped his hand. He stood on tiptoe and patted its neck. It's none of your business. You can't stay even if you want to. Nay. This horse never intended to stay, but... How could you bully me? The dumb unicorn drooped its head. When it heard Su Hao calling it from afar, it immediately ran over and called out a 10 times 10 sky blue cloud. It carried Su Hao and the others and slowly took off. It lined up along the special flight route in the city of Glow until it flew out of the city. Then, it suddenly accelerated and disappeared into the horizon with a whoosh. On the campus of Whale Island University, things were still the same as before. It was still rare to see people or sprites walking on the road. Su Hao could only occasionally see 1 or 2 juniors who had received cleaning missions. They were instructing their sprites and working meticulously. It only became slightly more lively when he reached the dormitory area, but everyone was still doing their own thing. Even after 4 years, many students only knew a few of their classmates. Su Hao was the same. In the whole school, Su Hao only knew Mr. Bai, Feng Liang Ke, and Senior Nan and Lin, who were substitutes for the school team. Right, regarding the school team, what's the situation now? The high school league is coming soon, right? He had forgotten that there was such a thing. Senior Wu and the instructors in the school didn't seem to have mentioned it to him either. What is going on? Oh right, you were too busy back then and I also forgot to tell you. Chapter 363, Fallen Evolution. Bloomed flowers could be seen in the manor. Senior Wu, who had neatly combed hair, said. Didn't you dominate over the Golden Eagle Federation and the White Bear Nation in the Supernova Cup not long ago? Somehow, your battle results reached Dragon City University and even some other Sprite universities. Then, Senior Wu looked at him with a strange look. Many universities have jointly proposed that you should be discouraged from participating in the competition. To be honest, in all my years as a professor, this is the first time something like this happened. What an odd thing. Even Dragon City University expressed that as long as you refrain from participating in the competition, Dragon City University won't send out contestant Lan Qing. In the eyes of the instructors of other universities, the two of you can be considered as powerful as nuclear weapons. Su Hao, meow, meow, meow. And this proposal passed. Ahem, I'm still asking for your opinion, aren't I? The higher UPS would prefer it. After all, the high school league is a competition for ordinary people. They hope it can be more exciting. The higher UPS also have a suggestion, that is. They want you to participate in the high school league as a special guest, not as a member of the school team. Guest. Su Hao recalled for a moment. I remember that there was no mention of special guests in the past. That's right. This matter was only set up this year. Speaking of which, it has to do with you. Su Hao. Senior Wu continued, last year, when the two commentators in the hosting league were talking about your sprites, many problems appeared. For example, some of the things they said about the secret manuals and tactical arrangements used by your sprites weren't exactly correct. Actually, it's not just you. Nowadays, the competitors in the league are getting stronger year by year. There are also cases of self-invented secret manuals. Therefore, the higher UPS have decided to invite a few special guests in addition to the commentary. They don't need you to constantly explain the battle situation like a commentator. They just need you to explain some of the special secret manuals and tactics at critical moments. In the end, Senior Wu added, well, of course, there's also a very rich reward that comes with this. So, what's your opinion? Well, of course I'm fine with it. As the new generation's top 5 students, I will definitely obey the organization's arrangements. Su Hao praised with both hands. It was definitely not because he could get rewards just by sitting there. Senior Wu. Senior Wu felt that if he reversed the order of the things he just said, the process probably wouldn't have been so troublesome. Now, let's talk about your employment. After watching Su Hao leave, Heavenly King Wu snapped his fingers, and a cup of water flew in front of him. How nice! Little Junior has already been employed by Whale Island University. With his improvement speed, I'll have more arrangements for him. Before long, he'll be able to take over my position. By then, I will be able to start my retirement plan. The plan is working. Heavenly King Wu smiled. At the moment, the position arranged by the school for me is a special instructor. According to Senior Wu, the position given was too low and wasn't worthy of Su Hao's strength. They also couldn't have given Su Hao too high of a position as it would offend others. No matter what, Su Hao was still just a newbie who had just started work and had yet to graduate from school. Moreover, even though Su Hao already had the strength of a quasi-heavenly king and even had the battle record of defeating a heavenly king, his teaching skills were still unknown. It wasn't enough for an instructor to be strong himself, especially at Whale Island University. Still, Senior Wu believed in him. He believed that Su Hao's teaching abilities weren't bad. But others thought differently. Su Hao still needed to prove himself. Su Hao was confident in this. After all, he was a man who created countless secret manuals. At the very least, he still had the experienced butterfly to help him out. Gurgle. 50-50. Gurgle, okay. After returning to the dormitory, Su Hao decided to stay there for a while. He also had to work on the Fallen Evolution research project. At this moment, Fallen Butterfly Fairy, unlocked. Fallen Flaming Spirit Crow, unlocked. The Fallen Evolved Butterfly was a purple-black sprite with butterfly wings patterns. It possessed the power to corrode one's soul. Its wood element energy also started to pick up withering attributes. It emitted terrifying negative energy. As for the Dazed Crow, the flames after its fallen evolution were black. However, after it fused with the golden flames and received the inheritance, the fallen evolution became increasingly incompatible with it. The situation simulated by the interface showed that after the Dazed Crow evolved, it would become somewhat abnormal instead. Su Hao felt that if he waited any longer to unlock, the pathway of the Dazed Crow's fallen evolution might disappear. On the other hand, Butterfly didn't lack any evolution pathways. The fallen evolution of the two sprites was unlocked. From the many pieces of information, Su Hao quickly found the common points. However, there wasn't a lot in common. The plan given by the interface was too compatible with the sprite, and it was actually troublesome at this moment. After his continuous cheating, relentless hard work, he figured out some of the things that had to do with the fallen evolution. As such, the unlocking plan also finally appeared. It didn't appear under the name of Butterfly, Dazed Crow, and any other sprite, but under the list of his own character. Full Form Fallen Evolution, unlock with 360 intelligence points. Su Hao. This was the first time he had seen such an expensive unlocking requirement. Of course not. After studying it for a while, he quickly discovered the reason. He had too little information, and the universal fallen evolution covered sprites of different attributes and types. The amount of information was far more, and so naturally the cost was higher than unlocking the evolution of one or two sprites. This was an important research project. If Su Hao wanted to reduce the cost of unlocking it, he needed to find other sprites that could undergo fallen evolution. Only by grasping enough general information could the cost be greatly reduced. Such research is meaningful. Intelligence points are indeed precious. I can use the points to nurture a few more sprites that are similar to Butterfly. Similar to Dazed Crow, but If his work could allow the Union to have a few more heavenly kings or let existing heavenly kings' strength to leap another level, Su Hao would be more than willing to do it. Only with a strong Union could he live a more stable life. Only then could he continue to hide behind and happily slack off. Cough, cough. In short, finding a few suitable sprites is the first step. The second step, I'll think about it in the future. Dazed Crow and the other sprites cultivated by themselves with the help of the school's facilities. Su Hao himself spent his days researching research topics, and from time to time, he went to Principal Yang's place to listen and observe the crown-level soaring snake. Fatty Ren and the others were also busy and they had only met up once. They were working hard to improve themselves and break into the special training camp at the end of this year. This was the normal campus life of top students. It was a life different from Su Hao's. Time passed quickly. Soon, Su Hao's first public lecture after being employed was to be held. The news that the genius instructor was about to start classes spread quickly throughout the school. Chapter 364, Su Hao's Fan Group. In Whale Island University, there were two types of classes. The first were normal classes. These classes were offered to students at the beginning of the semester and were taught by a specific instructor. The classes weren't as diverse as the classes in Cultural University. Usually, there were 3 to 5 classes a month, concentrated at the beginning of the month or the end of the month. The classes of every instructor generally had fixed times. For example, Instructor Sun taught the class Art of Fire, Instructor Ma taught the class Profundity of Water, and so on. The classes were taught consistently over many years. Apart from those classes, there were also public lectures. The 8 Heavenly King level professors in the school would hold public lectures 1 to 3 times every semester for all the students and even instructors. The other instructors also held public lectures, but the teaching method wasn't as strict as regular classes. The instructors of all levels could choose the content they wanted to teach according to their wishes. Since half a month ago, the students who stayed at Whale Island University discovered that there was an additional new public lecture on the list of courses they could choose. The class was called Secret Manual Creation. It was a public lecture on how to conceptualize and design secret manuals. As soon as the class appeared, it caused quite a commotion among the students. Will it teach us how to create our own secret manuals? Can we really create our own secret manuals? Which professor is teaching it? Is it someone from our school? I hear it's Instructor Su Hao. Who's that? I don't think I've heard of him. Listen to this. The instructor who joined our school this year is actually. There was no lack of information experts among the student group. Su Hao's identity was naturally revealed very quickly. They found out Su Hao was an instructor, but he was also a student. A mere second-year student. Whale Island University's legendary student. But even if he's a legend in our school, he's still a student. How did a student like us become an instructor? Isn't that too exaggerated? I was just wondering why I haven't heard any news about this junior in a long time. I didn't expect that in the blink of an eye, he actually became a school instructor and is now teaching us. Many third and fourth year seniors had complicated expressions. Many of them knew about Su Hao's battle results. As for those they didn't know, after asking others, they roughly understood. But no matter how strong he was, even if he was stronger than the instructor, he couldn't just directly become their instructor, could he? Besides, his own strength and teaching skills were two different things. In the past, however, there had also been fourth-year students who could compare to or even defeat instructors, so the situation wasn't exactly unfathomable. Thinking of this, they had mixed feelings. There were feelings of admiration, curiosity, and jealousy. It was a little embarrassing to go and listen to his lecture. No matter how strong he was just a second-year junior. What could he teach them? Only a few people had seen Su Hao battle with their own eyes. They also vaguely knew that all the secret manuals in Su Hao's hands were self-created. It was fundamentally different from other young geniuses who still used secret manuals that were given to them by instructors or family members. The public lecture wasn't about anything else. It was about secret manuals. The lecture might offer valuable insights. In any case, it's only one class. Although it's a little embarrassing, isn't there a saying that the accomplished are the masters? Or think of it as helping a junior out. We don't want our junior to have to give a lecture in an empty classroom when the time comes. What the F***ck? A senior opened his wristband and was in no hurry to register until he saw that the remaining slots for the public lecture decreased rapidly. The total number of slots on the right side of the diagonal bar was 500, but at this moment, there were already only 100 slots left. The number was still falling continuously, and very soon, it dropped by 2 digits. It scared a certain senior so much that he hurriedly clicked to sign up. Before long, the 500 slots for the public lecture were all taken. Many seniors looked like they had seen a ghost. It's clearly still half a month away from class. Is there something other people know that I don't? In a student group chat. At all members, Senior Su is back. He's preparing for a lesson. Come and support, sisters. Link, click to view. This was a group chat for freshmen. Many of them chose Whale Island University because they saw Senior Su's outstanding performance in the high school league. In the league, Su Hao was strong and handsome. The image of him lingered in their minds. Later, in school, Su Hao defeated the Korean exchange team ruthlessly. It shocked the students who witnessed it with their own eyes. Especially freshmen. Of course, there were also people who were jealous. He's just a little stronger than us. He's only the champion of the high school league and yet he's bragging like no one among the younger generation can match him. Those who don't know might even think that he's stronger than a heavenly king. Idiots. A genius student sneered. Only ignorant people would worship someone their age. If he can do it, why can't we? The freshman student glanced at the decreasing number of slots on his wristband, shook his head, and directly closed it. It's just a waste of time. Then, he walked out. At this moment, Su Hao didn't know that he already had a rather large fan group in school. He looked at the course that had only been released for half a day, but all the slots had already been filled. He couldn't help but be stunned. It's different from what I expected. Could it be that Senior Wu secretly made arrangements because he was worried that there would be too few students attending the lecture? But, isn't this a little too obvious? At the same time, at the 10,000 Wood Manor, Heavenly King Wu was also a little confused. I haven't even started making arrangements yet? Where did the 500 people come from? This is very odd. He couldn't understand, so he simply stopped trying to. It was fine as long as the number of people listening in class wasn't too small to make it awkward. The day arrived very quickly. It was the day of Su Hao's public lecture. The classroom was located in the large classroom on the first floor on Building A of the teaching area. The classrooms of Sprite universities were completely different from ordinary universities. These classrooms took up a larger area, and the seats were placed like stairs. Rows of seats extended higher, similar to theater seats. Directly in front. Not only was there a blackboard and a projector screen, but there was also a wide demonstration field. According to the instructor's content, the instructors would apply for classrooms with corresponding environments, arrangements, and facilities. Therefore, Whale Island University had many different classrooms. At first glance, the utilization rate of every classroom was very low, but these classrooms all had a need to exist. This was also why Sprite universities were very rare. Indeed, the teaching resources were too expensive. At this moment, in the classroom, students pushed the door and entered one after another. The 500 seats were gradually filled. Many Sprites were sitting or squatting obediently beside their Sprite trainers. From time to time, they looked at the figure on the podium and felt wisps of pressure coming from there. The aura was very faint, but especially dignified, like a king. The sprites shrank their heads and became more obedient. The time drew closer. About 10 instructors pushed the door open and entered at about the same time. Su Hao recognized Senior Wu, an instructor son of the fire element. But most of them were first and second year instructors who he had only heard of but weren't familiar with. The class started. Chapter 365, Butterfly's Point Transformation Spell. There were a total of 11 instructors present, 3 first-year instructors and 8 second-year instructors. It was a rather impressive lineup. The purpose of their visit was naturally to examine his teaching level. It wasn't exactly special treatment. Many new instructors had to go through this stage. But Su Hao was self-aware and knew that he didn't have enough experience. No matter how outstanding his battle results were, there would still be many instructors who would maintain a skeptical attitude. Some might even deny his ability to teach. Principal Yang, however, was a big believer in his abilities. Su Hao also had the support of Senior Wu and the others. In reality, the benefits and treatment of Whale Island University's instructor position were far inferior to that of the intern inspector. It was just that Whale Island was where Su Hao started doing well. Principal Yang and Senior Wu also treated him very well. He himself also hoped that Whale Island University would become better. He hoped it could produce even more outstanding students. Since I've accepted this position, I naturally have to do my best. The instructors took their seats. Senior Wu wasn't a member of the inspection team. His purpose for coming here was to help make sure little junior did well so that he could enjoy retirement as soon as possible. It was to let little junior be able to take charge of things alone as soon as possible. Senior Wu gave him an encouraging look. Su Hao glanced back and proceeded to start the lesson. As everyone knows, secret manuals are the best battle methods for sprites created by combining unique skills, profound meanings, and even special materials. Naturally, secret manuals developed for individual sprites are more suitable and can also unleash more complete power. This was actually also the reason why Dazed Crow and the others were extremely strong in battle. They were perfectly compatible with their secret manuals. So, then the question is, how do we conceptualize and create secret manuals that match our sprites? On the periphery, a student took out a notebook and prepared to take notes with a serious expression. There were also people who still had doubts in their eyes, as if they wanted to wait for the person on stage to say something that would confirm their thoughts. But there were even more cute juniors watching without blinking. Su Hao. Although I'm very handsome, you have to listen carefully. He didn't expect that the first obstacle in the public lecture was his excessive charm. Cough, cough. Since the secret manuals of sprites are derived from unique skills and profound meanings learned, before creating the secret manuals, one has to pick out unique skills and profound meanings that can be fused. Then, one has to make improvements and fuse together what he has selected. Some special secret manuals will also need to be matched with related rituals. How exactly is this done? Su Hao looked at the 500 students in front of him. I'll choose 5 people and 5 sprites from the audience. Then, I'll demonstrate it to you all. Before he finished speaking, many juniors had already raised their hands. It made the corners of his eyes twitch slightly. In the end, 5 students were chosen to go on stage by drawing lots. 4 girls and 1 boy were chosen after all. Among the 500 students present, the number of female students exceeded 400. The 5 of them came to the stage. Some were nervous, while others were excited. Su Hao didn't care about them. Instead, his gaze swept across the sprites. They were all the trump cards of the juniors. They seemed to have mastered many unique skills and profound meanings and were in the mid-level elite level. Overall, their development was still all right. Let your dream owl demonstrate the sound of hypnosis. Let your flaming phoenix butterfly use flame storm, flame shield, and butterfly dance. Let your Su Hao let their sprites demonstrate one by one. Without asking, Su Hao was able to directly point out the unique skill that Sprites grasped, making many students look at him in awe. The instructors of the inspection team also nodded silently. However, it was still very difficult for them to create secret manuals based on this. What would he do next? At the center of their gazes, Instructor Su Hao was currently observing the performance of the Sprites. Or at least pretending to. In fact, his gaze landed on the interface and pulled out the information of a few Sprites. With his current knowledge reserves, horizons, and experience, directly creating a compatible secret manual might consume intelligence points, but if he could just obtain a direction, a prototype, and with the help of specific data, it was enough. Aware that the others were watching him, Su Hao continued pretending to observe. After reading the information of the 5 Sprites, he shifted his gaze to the other Sprites. He also gazed at the Sprites of the instructors. He saw the tyrant bear of a certain instructor, the wind-winged sky-patterned tiger of another instructor, and the 3-headed hound of instructor Sun Jiaoang. 3-headed hound? When Su Hao's gaze landed on the information of the 3-headed hound, he paused for a few more seconds. The reason was that this 3-headed hound was very suitable for certain needs in the fallen evolution. After deducting a bit of his intelligence points. Ding dong! As expected, fallen evolution was available in the advanced list of the 3-headed hound. The compatibility was higher than dazed crow and butterflies, at 85%. It made Su Hao pay more attention. However, now is not the time to research this research project. He retracted his gaze and looked at the few Sprites again. He said, "Your flaming phoenix butterfly is good at mid to short range attacks. Moreover, the special quality of the butterfly wings can absorb and attach part of the flames, so." From using energy to fusing unique skills, Su Hao said a lot in one breath. But the junior in front of him was dizzy from listening. Her expression was very serious, but most of it was confusion and loss. Only the instructors became more and more shocked the more they listened. He really found the best fusion method in such a short time. It's still not enough to be considered a secret manual, but if he continues down this path, it's indeed very likely that he'll develop a secret manual. Is this talent? No wonder the old principal wanted to push him to be an instructor against public opinion. However, although he is talented, his teaching methods are not very good. How can a first-year student understand such a high-level application of energy? The other instructors agreed. But even if there were flaws in the teaching method, Su Hao's performance had already received their approval. After all, with this thought in mind, the instructors in the front row suddenly widened their eyes as if they had seen an unbelievable thing. At this moment, while Su Hao was explaining the embryonic form of the secret manual, Butterfly also flew out from behind the podium. It stretched out a finger and placed it on the forehead of the flaming phoenix butterfly. The butterfly with beautiful fiery red patterns froze in mid-air. It took a long while before it returned to its senses. It looked at the special target in front of it and saw the encouraging gaze of Senior Butterfly. The flaming phoenix butterfly flapped its wings and flew forward. Its wings swept up a violent wind, and flames gradually blossomed. The firestorm enveloped an area of more than 10 meters, and it also enveloped the flaming phoenix butterfly within. Gradually, the range of the flaming storm started to shrink, from more than 10 meters, to 5 to 6 meters, to 1 to 2 meters, and finally, it only attached to the flaming phoenix butterfly, like a particularly large coat. Flaming gown. The prototype of a secret manual. It actually succeeded. When the dizzy junior saw this, her eyes widened and her mouth opened wide, as if she didn't recognize the sprite in front of her. When did her sprite become so perceptive? She wasn't sure, but the instructors present, including many classmates, all guessed the reason. It was what Butterfly did with its finger just now. Instantaneous enlightenment. There was even such a method of teaching. As expected, the butterfly fairy in their eyes tapped on the foreheads of the few sprites one by one. The 4 sprites all paused for a moment. Then, their comprehension and application of unique skills improved a lot, even forming the elementary form of secret manuals. This was really happening. It wasn't an illusion. The instructors were all stunned speechless, especially the instructors who felt that Su Hao's teaching method wasn't too good just now. Their faces were a little hot. How could such a teaching method be considered as not good? With the help of Butterfly, the sprites were able to improve greatly in a short period of time. After each of the 5 sprites improved, Su Hao also explained some of the key points in a serious and detailed manner. The sprites had gone from having a lack of connection between the various unique skills and the secret manual, to having an obvious synergy between the two. This dramatic transformation made many students in the audience seats feel very enlightened. It was just that compared to the gains of the 5 people on stage, they were jealous. They could only think about those students who didn't manage to get a slot. Well, that made their mood a little better. Today's lesson will end here. Finally, I want to emphasize that no matter what secret manual I create, the fundamentals are all based on the strength of the sprite, its usage of energy. Only by mastering a unique skill can one fuse secret manuals that match sprites with it. With that, he snapped his fingers. Ripples appeared in the surrounding space. A thunder roaring, a flaming spirit crow, and 2 mighty sprites appeared on both sides of the demonstration area. As soon as they appeared, strong energy waves were emitted. Countless thunder arcs flashed on Thunder Roaring's body, as if it wanted to turn the whole classroom into a sea of thunder. The flaming spirit crow also emitted a dazzling light. Rolling heat waves spread, making many sprites in the front row retreat involuntarily. In the eyes of the newbies, Thunder Roaring strode forward and struck out with its palm. Like the flaming spirit crow, it waved a dazzling red light. The terrifying power made them break out in cold sweat. Their bodies were stiff, and they couldn't help but close their eyes. But... boom! The sound of the explosion spread. The imagined situation of the aftershock sweeping and destroying the whole classroom did not happen. The red light acted like 2 crossing swords. Countless thunder arcs also interweaved into a huge thunder beast phantom. The 2 phenomena persisted. Red and purple light blossomed. However, all of this was restricted to a range of 20 meters in the center of the demonstration field. It was like an invisible circle had been drawn. There was a clear distinction between the space inside and outside the circle. No matter how violent the energy was, it didn't leak out at all. This was the control of energy. The newbie students were shocked beyond words, but they also found a goal to pursue.